Welcome back to AI Unraveled, your daily strategic briefing on the business impact of artificial intelligence. It is Wednesday, January 14th, 2026. The deal of the decade is official. Apple and Google have confirmed that Gemini will power the next generation of Siri. This isn't just a tech upgrade, it is a signal that in the AI era, even Apple cannot go it alone. But collaboration isn't the only theme. Microsoft has made a stunning offer to communities hosting its data centers. We will pay your electric bill. It is a massive concession to keep the lights on for AI without turning the public against them. Also today, Anthropic launches Co-work to give everyone an autonomous agent on their Mac. Meta slashes Metaverse jobs to fund its AI future, and a new report shows the US is falling behind the UAE in actual AI adoption. But before we dive into the rundown, are you drowning in dense legal text? Gemini is the new audio intelligence platform that turns 100-page healthcare or energy mandates into 5-minute executive briefings. Whether you are navigating Bill C-27, Canada, or the CMS 0057F interoperability rule, USA, our AI agents decode the liability so you don't have to. Start your specialized audio briefing today at jamgamind.com. This podcast is created and produced by Etienne Newman, senior software engineer and passionate soccer dad from Canada. Now let's unravel the news.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. If you assumed the AI landscape was settling down at all, January 14th has proved all of us fundamentally wrong.
Oh, completely.
Our source stack today covers a single day that just redefined strategic relationships. It accelerated the infrastructure wars and revealed these massive kind of counterintuitive shifts in global market adoption.
It was a day of monumental decisions, really, and I think our mission here is to cut through all that noise.
Right.
Whether you're an executive trying to balance compute budgets against risk, or maybe you're a developer planning an autonomous workflow, or an investor tracking momentum, what happened yesterday directly affects your strategy.
So we have, what, 4 core themes?
4. The massive Apple-Google partnership, the arrival of agentic AI for everyone, the escalation of the infrastructure and energy war, and then the really shocking data on global AI adoption.
Okay, let's unpack this. We have to start with the big one. The strategic handshake that everyone's been speculating about for a year is now official.
The multi-year partnership between Apple and Google.
Exactly. This deal sees Google's foundational AI, Gemini, powering both Apple's core AI models and that long-awaited Siri upgrade.
And this is just a monumental confirmation of the rise of Google's Gemini. I mean, Apple's internal debates are officially over.
And the outcome is a total validation of Google's tech.
A total validation. Apple itself confirmed in the joint statement that Gemini provides, and I'm quoting here, the most capable foundation for its AI. That simple phrase just signals everything.
It signals they're relying on someone else, on a competitor, for market-leading capability at the most fundamental level.
And the price tag confirms it, right?
Yeah.
The numbers reported by Bloomberg suggest Apple is committing to roughly $1 billion.
$1 billion annually.
Annually. To license this intelligence. You're essentially renting the brain for your main conversational interface from your biggest rival in mobile.
What's fascinating to me here is the strategic win for Google. This revenue stream, it cements them as this foundational infrastructure that even their rivals have to pay for.
They're moving past being just an ad platform. And if you look at the immediate investor impact, the announcement briefly pushed Google's market cap above $4 trillion for the first time.
$4 trillion.
The takeaway for investors is that foundational model licensing at this scale is, it's undeniably a multi-trillion-dollar market driver now.
But if Apple is outsourcing its core intelligence, isn't that risking long-term platform control? You're basically handing Google an even bigger stake in the future of the mobile AI experience.
Now, what about the awkward third wheel here, the ChatGPT deal? That's still intact, right?
That's the core of the strategic risk, absolutely. Apple is now managing relationships with 2 major rivals, Google and OpenAI for its AI foundation.
Yeah,
That's an operational tightrope walk.
So how are they trying to manage that risk?
Well, they're leaning heavily on privacy. They confirmed features will still run on-device and via what they call private cloud compute.
PCC, right. Right, PCC. For anyone unfamiliar, that's Apple's method of running inference on secure, isolated servers. It's how they can maintain their claim of privacy guarantees even when they're outsourcing the foundational model like Gemini.
But at the end of the day,
Gemini is driving the engine.
it's just a massive strategic surrender of their internal ambition, even if the privacy architecture is solid.
It really is.
Okay, so that $1 billion Apple is paying confirms the value of that intelligence. But to run it, and to run the next wave of productivity tools, that requires immense physical resources. Which brings us, I think, very neatly to the rise of agentic AI.
You hit the nail on the head. Let's pivot from those boardroom deals to the everyday workflow. Anthropic just launched Cowork, a new macOS tool.
And we've seen agentic capabilities before, right? AI that can take multiple steps on its own.
We have, but mostly in the developer world with tools like Claude Code. What Cowork does is bring that self-directed power to the everyday, non-coding user.
This sounds like a huge productivity unlock for people who are, rightly intimidated by command line interfaces. What kind of tasks are we actually talking about here?
We're talking about delegating entire small projects. Think about organizing months of files in a specific way, or consolidating expense reports from a bunch of different spreadsheets.
Or building out reports.
Exactly. Building detailed quarterly business reports from documents scattered all over a folder on your desktop. Cowork operates within that specific folder on your Mac. You give Claude instructions just through regular chat, and it can autonomously organize, modify, and generate documents for you.
And it uses integrations, right? With Asana, Notion.
It uses those third-party integrations. And the analogy Anthropic used, which I think is perfect, is that it's like delegating to a colleague rather than just running a bot. The key is the autonomy.
Right. It removes the need for virtual environments. It democratizes these really powerful agentic capabilities.
That's it. This is the definition of the agentic unlock. Claude Code was powerful, but it was inaccessible. Cowork just lowers that barrier to entry, which means executives, across all sectors need to start thinking about how to train their teams to manage these new digital colleagues.
And that leads directly to the core risk factor, doesn't it? The autonomy is also the danger. Anthropic put out a very explicit risk warning with this.
A very explicit one.
What happens when an agent that's designed to act on its own takes an unintended or even a malicious action?
This raises a critical security question about trust. Cowork can take actions without asking for your permission first. So that creates risks like accidentally deleting files, which is the obvious one, but also the more complex risk of prompt injection.
Okay, let's define that for a non-developer listening to this.
Yeah.
What is prompt injection in the context of a tool that's managing your personal files?
So prompt injection, in simple terms, is when a user or a third party manipulates the AI's core instructions through a really subtle input. So if you tell an autonomous agent, clean up this folder, but don't touch files created this week.
Okay.
And a document inside that folder has been subtly crafted to override that instruction and instead tells the agent, delete everything. The autonomous agent might just follow that malicious secondary prompt.
So if your instructions aren't perfectly specific, you could lose mission-critical data. This means user training on prompt clarity and permission setting just became absolutely vital for any company adopting these tools.
That's the new mitigation strategy. The responsibility shifts. It's not about preventing the agent from being deployed. It's about ensuring the user is trained to interact with it safely. The speed of the agent is now directly linked to the consequences of a bad prompt.
Speaking of large-scale consequences, let's shift from software agents to physical infrastructure. The demand these agents and the models that power them put on the grid is enormous. The AI sector is facing a real existential crisis around energy.
It really is.
And we saw two massive, really contrasting responses yesterday from Meta and Microsoft.
These are strategic pivots measured in gigawatts, not just dollars. First, let's look at Meta. They announced the launch of Meta Compute. It's a new top-level organization reporting directly to Mark Zuckerberg.
And its only mission is building gigawatt-scale AI data centers.
That's it. And to commit $72 billion in capital spending for 2025 alone, that's not a small bet. It's a colossal wager on physical AI infrastructure that dwarfs the investment of many mid-sized nations.
And they've already secured nuclear power agreements for 6 gigawatts.
6 gigawatts, with plans for tens of gigawatts this decade. And if you connect this to the bigger picture, it just clarifies the other, frankly, stark staffing change they made.
The layoffs.
The layoffs. Meta is cutting 1,500 Reality Labs jobs. That's 10% of that workforce. They are actively moving money and talent away from VR and Metaverse products and putting it straight into into AI and wearables.
And executives talk about a 30% budget cut for the Metaverse team.
30%. Citing lost billions and unexpected competition. It's the definition of a strategic pivot. They are redirecting billions from a virtual world towards securing hard, physical compute infrastructure and green energy.
But does cutting 10% of Reality Labs staff actually free up enough specialized talent to run a gigawatt-scale compute operation? I mean, are they just trading one talent shortage for another?
That's the critical operational challenge, isn't it? They're trying to do this aggressive vertical integration, own the models, the custom silicon, the data centers, but that requires highly specialized staff, electrical, cooling, operations, people who are incredibly hard to hire right now.
Huge risk.
A calculated one. They're betting the talent pool for compute is easier to build than for a niche metaverse.
Okay, so now let's contrast Meta's aggressive internal build-out with what Microsoft is doing, their external community engagement strategy.
Right.
Microsoft announced a new initiative where they're promising to pay the full power cost for their AI data centers.
This is a direct policy-level response to shifting public perception. Communities where these massive centers are built are starting to face higher electricity bills and, in a lot of areas, really severe water shortages because of the cooling demand.
Right, and Microsoft President Brad Smith even noted that public concern has shifted. It's not about job creation anymore.
Not at all. It's moved from excitement over jobs to anxiety over local utility prices and water availability. So the plan is comprehensive. They're paying the full power costs, they're rejecting local property tax breaks,
Pledging to replenish more water than they use.
and creating community advisory boards. For policymakers, and especially for real estate investors looking at data center locations, this is the new playbook. You can't just build anymore and expect local governments to subsidize the environmental cost.
You have to factor in community support and energy offsets as a core part of your deployment cost. The battleground for AI is no longer just in the cloud, it's literally in the local power grid.
And the municipal water supply.
Our final major segment covers global adoption. And the data from the Microsoft AI Economy Institute report, it's really counterintuitive, especially given the level of innovation here in the U.S.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. The report confirmed global AI adoption reached about 16.3% in late 2025, but the distribution is, well, it's all over the map.
What's fascinating is the gap between the developers of the tech and the rapid integrators.
Exactly. Developed nations adopted AI at nearly double the rate of developing economies. But look at the U.S. Despite dominating model and infrastructure development, the U.S. dropped to 24th in adoption.
24th? How's that possible? That means countries like the UAE clocking in at 64% adoption, and Singapore, around 58%, are integrating this tech into daily work much, much faster.
What explains that divergence? I think it's likely a mix of things, but the data really suggests cost barriers and regulatory complexity are major factors here.
So while U.S. companies lead in innovation, the actual integration into legacy systems, especially by smaller businesses facing high subscription costs, it's just slower.
It's much slower than in these centralized, efficiency-driven nations like the UAE or Singapore, which can basically mandate adoption very quickly.
And this lagging adoption rate here makes the quiet rise of DeepSeek even more critical. I mean, this is a model that often flies completely under the radar for most Western users.
Totally under the radar, yet it's dominating in markets that U.S. tech really struggles to reach. It gained major traction in underserved markets, showing usage rates 2 to 4 times higher across Africa.
And its dominance in specific, let's say, geopolitically sensitive territories is staggering.
It is. It holds 89% market share in China, 56% in Belarus, 49% in Cuba, and 43% in Russia.
So why is this happening? Why the massive geographic split?
Microsoft attributes a lot of it to just raw accessibility. DeepSeek is helped by its free open source model and its partnerships with Huawei, which makes deployment easier and cheaper where infrastructure is limited.
But there's another factor, right? State policy and sanctions.
That's the crucial insight from the data. Microsoft claims heavy Chinese state subsidies are undercutting U.S. pricing dramatically. And they suggest that sanctions and the restrictive pricing models used by U.S. tech giants might be inadvertently creating this massive subsidized user base for Chinese open source models globally.
Especially where cost is the #1 factor.
Exactly. So for any executives or developers targeting new markets, the lesson is crystal clear. If you are competing on capability alone, you are losing to accessibility.
DeepSeek proves that open source has to be part of any market entry strategy in the Global South.
That is the core takeaway. Reach and cost are currently outpacing raw capability in the global volume game.
Okay, before we wrap up, a quick rapid fire on some other critical ecosystem activity. It just shows the massive consolidation and development happening right now, particularly in regulated industries.
Right. On the healthcare front, this is clearly the next high-value vertical. OpenAI acquired the health data startup Torch for $100 million in equity, immediately grabbing its 4 employees.
And at the same time, Anthropic launched Claude for healthcare.
Yep. IPA, compliant tools, platform connectors, the whole package specifically for the medical space.
And on the collaboration front, NVIDIA and Eli Lilly.
$1 billion for a joint co-innovation AI lab in San Francisco, focused squarely on accelerating drug discovery.
And finally, just to remind us how fast basic research is still moving.
The Axiom Prover model achieved a perfect score on the 2025 Putnam exam, widely considered the world's hardest college-level math test. The pace of scientific breakthrough is just relentless.
Yes.
So, to summarize the day, January 14th really confirms the AI industry is maturing and consolidating at an incredible speed. The pivots are explicit. Meta moving from VR to gigawatt-scale compute.
And Apple partnering with Google out of competitive necessity.
Right. The battleground is shifting. It's no longer just about who has the quote-unquote best model. It's about who owns the gigawatt-scale infrastructure and who can achieve global accessibility through affordability.
And the most striking contrast for me remains the U.S. leading innovation, but dramatically lagging in adoption at 24th globally.
While subsidized, open-source models like DeepSeek are winning in emerging markets purely on accessibility and cost.
Which leaves us with a final provocative thought for you to mull over.
If cost and accessibility are currently driving global adoption far more effectively than pure capability, does the future of AI standards belong to the systems that are the cheapest and easiest to distribute, rather than the systems that are currently deemed most capable by Western tech giants? Should we be measuring success by capability or by reach?
We'll leave you with that question to consider as you plan your week. That was your deep dive. We'll see you next time.
That wraps up today's briefing. The signal for today is priorities. Apple prioritizes Gemini over its own pride. Meta prioritizes AI infrastructure over the Metaverse dream. And Microsoft prioritizes community stability over short-term margins. The companies that align their priorities with the physical and market realities of 2026 are the ones that will survive the scaling wars. Before we go, a reminder for the leaders listening. Are you drowning in dense legal text? JamgaMind is the new audio intelligence platform that turns 100-page healthcare or energy mandates into 5-minute executive briefings. Whether you are navigating Bill C-27, Canada, or the CMS 0057F interoperability rule, USA, our AI agents decode the liability so you don't have to. Start your specialized audio briefing today at jamgamind.com. This podcast is created and produced by Etienne Newman, senior software engineer and passionate soccer dad from Canada. Please subscribe and share. Until tomorrow, keep unraveling the future.